I just remembered I normally began the talks in last October, November, always with welcome. Remember that. So again, welcome. Just before sitting down, a story of the Buddha came into my mind, and it's very significant. And so I just tell you that. It is a very famous story of the young Siddhartha Gautama. And you most of all have heard that story, but I just place it on a specific aspect. You know, the young Siddhartha Gautama was well educated and grew up in a very rich and secluded environment. And for some reason, it is never told, when he was about obviously 30 or something like that, he, for the first time, realized the predicament of a human being. He realized that all human beings can become sick, that they grow old and finally die. And he was shocked, realizing most probably the fate is the same for me. But already at that time, he realized that human beings suffer of these facts immensely. And he thought by himself, most probably the suffering is made by the mind looking at this fact. It's not the fact itself, it's the mind looking at the fact. And so he realized, I do have the same kind of a mind so far. So I will suffer too. So if I don't want to suffer, I have to change my mind. That is the beginning for all of us. That's what we have to realize and we have to follow. And now is a significant experience. He actually met a human being who was sick, and he met someone growing old, and he met a dying person. And in his so-called fourth outing, he met a monk. Well, you know, someone who was on a spiritual path and who had a different mind. But at that time, the Buddha did not know anything about that, but he felt this person is different. This person has a tranquility, a strength. He is somehow not affected by what every human being is suffering from. And he was deep amazed and deep moved that there is possible for a human being, though the fact is the same, not to suffer. And he began his journey to find also this kind of a mind in himself. And he had to do this journey by himself because this person, this monk, disappeared. You know, he could not take him and say, tell me. So the Buddha himself went and for the journey for several years, and finally realized a mind which does not suffer, though the facts are the same. And that is where he then laid out a kind of a path. Traditionally, it's called the Eightfold Path. That is a developmental path from the mind we all have, we all begin, the conditioned human mind, on a long, long journey up to the mind where there is no suffering, though the fact is the same. And that is where we begin not only last October, November. That is what has inspired us, or even if we don't really know that it is that way, we are still inspired, otherwise we would not be on the path. And I just recall that incident of the Buddha, because that is something we constantly have to be reminded and remember ourselves. Otherwise, we are not really on the path. You know, we just do something, but there is a final, so to say, aim to finally move up into a developmental situation where the mind is so different that the Buddha himself called it the nirvana, or the nirvanic mind, you know, which looks at reality in a quite different way. That is where we all begin. And that is what inspires us to go. Is it so? I hope so. Otherwise, we would just be busy and don't know what and what for. Now, the Buddha designed, so to say, a path, a so-called Eightfold Path. And it is a sort of a strict structure, you know, steps laid out properly, you know, things you have to remind, contemplate, practice, and go on until you finally, hopefully, reach the final goal. And it's still done in the monasteries, in the Buddhist monasteries, especially in the Tibetan monasteries. In the Tibetan monasteries, that kind of a path is called Lam Rim. Have someone heard of that? Yeah, the a traditional gradual path, you know, where each step is properly explained, and you have contemplations and meditations and so on and so on. This is not what we do. We do have that kind of a direction, but as especially Western lay people, we do not go that kind of a strict structure and strict path. And we do look at all that not as a kind of a formal structure, but more a kind of a developmental process. Something we go in a certain direction, but it's a more a personal, let's say, adventure. Instead of saying it's a path, I would call it a scenic route. Like you're taking on an adventure, you know, up a road, you know, and it's not quite fixed what comes up on the next corner. And I do think that is more fitting to what's happening to us, you know. It's like walking up on the mountain, and then there is a kind of a scenic spot, and you say, wow, that's great, wonderful, you know. And then the next turn, and you are on a steep slope, and it's so difficult, you know, and so risky, and you slip and you're afraid, you know, and then but you have to go, and you will go. And then you come through a wood, and then it's refreshed, and then you come through a tunnel, and everything is dark. That is our practice, isn't it? That is our path. So we constantly have these moments where it's wonderful and great, you know, you have these great ideas and visions and everything, you know, and you would like to go on, but the next day it's all dark, you know, in a tunnel, nothing works. You're afraid and angry, you know, and you would like to leave the whole thing. And many people just leave, you know. They don't have the, well, the vision of the Buddha. They just walk on a path, and if that's getting difficult, they drop. So we are asked, we are invited, and we are inspired to walk on the path, whatever comes, knowing it's a process. And this process has different aspects. It's not all the way wonderfully up. It's not all great vistas, you know. It's a difficult slopes. At times you just slip down and you have to again try to get up. And you all know how it is. And you all have gone through these moments where you said, no, now it's enough. It's okay, you know. I don't trust these folks anymore, you know. It's all kind of stories. But the next time it's gone. You see someone who is proceeding and is stable and joyful and say, wow, you know, oh, I try it again. So that is why we are together. And that is the joy and the adventure and the progress. And we can help each other and say, well, okay, I have gone through that too. Don't worry, you know, it will pass, you know. Through all that, there is a kind of a guideline, so to say. I always call it like the rail of a step, you know. This kind of where when you walk up, you have something on the side where you can hold on, a rail. Is that correct? A handrail on a step. Miriam, that correct? Yeah. Or a rope or something like that. You know, when you're up in the mountains, you get these kind of ropes and you get yourself up. So whatever is happening, whatever has happened to us from the very beginning, especially in our tradition, so to say, we got that kind of a handrail. We got that rope. We got something to hold on, whatever is happening, that gives us a trust and a stability. And that is what we call our practice. The practice is meant to kind of give us a kind of backbone, so to say, some strength, a kind of a center, you know. Whenever it's a kind of getting wobbly, I hold on to that. I come back to myself, as we say. I come back to the practice. And I stabilize myself, whatever is happening. That is the backbone of our path, whatever is happening. And we have constantly to come back to that. If it's getting difficult, you grip on that. That's a practice. You all know? I have a wonderful leaflet here by Tai. Our practice is always to go back to the present moment, to the here and the now. Only in the here and the now can we touch life deeply. And that is what gives our path stability. That is what gives ourselves stability, centeredness, strength, and a certain direction where we constantly can come back and go back. And so we are asked, inspired, to constantly go back to that practice, constantly go back to, as it says, to the present moment, to the here and the now. It's not some kind of a fancy thing. It's not kind of a, kind of a practice someone has told, Tai or whoever. It is the backbone of our path. And if we only go on that, we'll reach. We will not reach somewhere if we don't have that backbone. We will leave. If it's getting difficult, we leave. And if it's getting too wonderful, we fly off. You know, you have heard of people who just kind of fly off, getting psychotic out of fantasy and, being angels and bodhisattvas on the path. We are constantly coming back to that. So we begin, and we have to begin with a with a realization, so to say. Something we say, yeah, now it's what it is, So we have to begin with an experience. It's like when you start learning to swim, and you see someone kind of leisurely scrolling along, you would say, no, I even don't try, And then someone says, well, you don't start like that. It's not that you start crawling along. It will show you, it's very easy. You just carefully go into the water and then you paddle a little bit along, And that's it. That's the beginning. And then you say, that's the beginning? So easy? Okay. So if we don't have that first experience of being somehow, some kind of centered, somehow now I am here, you don't know what it is all about. And so that's why we have gone to retreats, we have gone through practice sessions and so on and so on. Just to have that first experience, that's good enough. The rest is taken by itself. We only need to practice breathing in and breathing out once. Well, maybe a little bit more often. But it is that easy. It's amazing. But it's only that easy if you have in mind, well, I'm going in that direction. And that practice is a handrail which gives me the strength to go up. And whenever it's getting difficult, I just grab on that and practice breathing in and breathing out. And you hear Thai when he's giving Dharma talks for hours on end about breathing in and breathing out, you know. And it always sounds a little bit silly, but it's not. It's the most serious, deep practice you can ever think of, you know. We only need to practice breathing in and breathing out once to reach that oneness of body and mind. Then we are well established in the present moment. We become more real and alive because we are fully present. That is our path. That is our practice. And when we just go along that, and we are not only coming back to the present moment, we not only establish body and mind once a day in the morning from 6:30 to 7 or what something, you know, we're invited, no, we are asked to do it several times a day whenever there is this moment where you don't know what to do, which is difficult for most of us. We always know what to do. But we have to find these moments where I can sit back. I can get out of the rush. And it's not much what it is needed. I just come back to the breathing. I bring body and mind together. And then I'm there where I am anyway. I'm in the, what it's called, the here and now. And then I know what's happening. And it's not anymore that I'm just afraid or it's too difficult or I can't or how wonderful. All these things that just disappear because now you say, now I'm here. That's all. Now I'm here and I see this grand vista. Wonderful. And then you know, on the path, you will have to leave that. You go on to the next experience, the next adventure. And it's the same thing. Then you are there. You might be on a slippery slope, but that's all. It's not difficult, it's not bad, it should not be. You are just there on a slippery slope. And because you are there totally, absolutely, without any kind of judgment or whatever, you see what needs to be done. You see how to step, you place your steps, not to slide, because you are present. When we are present, nothing is really difficult or dangerous. It is just what needs to be done in that moment at this time. And then slowly, slowly, over the time. And it might take us years. And most probably it will take us years. We are getting stabilized. The fear just disappears a little bit. We are more courageous. We are trusting our practice, having the hand on the handrail. And slowly, slowly, you feel safe on the path. And now, there are still some obstacles. I like to make you aware now at the end of our being together. The first, you see, when we are practicing, breathing in and breathing out, bringing body and mind together, we stabilize ourselves, we center ourselves. And because we are so centered, we walk ahead, trusting and unafraid. And then you have practiced that in the meditation. Somehow you move away. Something seems to be there which catches your effect. You have to look. You're not any more concentrated. You're not any more stabilized. You all have this experience in sitting meditation. You're asked to be with your breathing, and then, and God knows why you are thinking about something, you know. And now you are asked to come back. The practice is constantly coming back. I've read that. Constantly coming back to your centeredness, your stabilized body, mind together. So the first challenge is the deviation. You all know how challenging it at times can be when you deviate, when you move away. And there are two obstacles we all have come along, and it depends a little bit on our psychological makeup, which is the most important one. The first obstacle is that is so interesting. It is just so wonderful now to have that kind of a thought. I waited for this insight already for weeks. And I was sitting down and have that realization. And no, I'm not going back to my breath. I'm really not doing that. Now I've finally got it, you know, or some vision came up. Now I'm a bodhisattva and being helpful for the rest of the world. These wonderful thoughts are so wonderful. I don't give them up. But the practice is coming back to the center, uniting body and mind to be stable. So the first obstacle is we are so excited what's happening. And this what's happening is either outside. You can see anyone kind of constantly look around what's happening. And then you forget your center. You're pulled out. And maybe you're thrown off the track. And it can be from the inside. It's not big of a difference, you know. All of a sudden this wonderful moment come up, or this bad moment, or whatever. So it throws us off the center. And then the practice is, it's the third of the precepts of monastics. It's the most important one on a spiritual path. And that is called renunciation. Have you heard that word, renunciation? You let go. You know, you cling to that and then someone says, let go. You don't do. You got this kind of grasping and holding, and there is this deep strength to let go and come back to the center. That's the most difficult one nowadays in the Western society. And you see all these these difficulties we have come across with even Western teachers. You know, they couldn't go. They couldn't let go. You know, there this lady was, and he could not help being thrown off the corner. You know. And it's amazing what has happened, how people just could not hold themselves, but were drawn off and thrown off. You have heard about these situations, and it's in other traditions even stronger, you know, because that is such a strong practice. It is such an immense, strong practice to come back, when that is so wonderful that it is so difficult to kind of let go of that. And you will find yourself again and again in these situations. Well, some of these situations from the outside, well, they are not that difficult, you know. You're not that much interested anymore in the outside. But when it comes to the inside, when you have these kind of nice feelings and memories and or worries, then you're off. You lose your center, and you're lost in memories and his thoughts and emotions. That's number one. However, this practice here says it's so easy. You know, you only need to breathe in once and breathe out, and then unite body and mind, and then you're there and you're stable and you go along your path. And then this wonderful lady comes along, or that difficult thought, or whatever, and you're gone. That's the first and one of the greatest obstacles. However easy the path is, and however easy the practice is, there is an obstacle. And so we need to be immensely honest that it is a deviation of the practice, nothing else. And that it is so difficult to let go. And so if you find yourself in that situation, just stay with it. Just feel this kind of glue. The traditional example is when a bee drops into a pot of honey, you know, it does not get out. It sticks with its legs in the honey, you know. That is the traditional image of that situation where we are kind of glued to something from the inside or from the outside. And the practice here is just be honest. Yes, that's what's happening now. And now I'm deviating. And when I go on doing that, I will not go on the path, you know. I'm just being busy getting out of the honey. That's all, you know. And you might have heard about all these wonderful stories when you're freed and one day you are in nirvana, and but you are getting stuck in the honey. That's all. So this example of the Buddha might help us. It might give us the strength to say, well, not for that. No, I'm not doing that. No, I'm here on the path and I will proceed on the path. And so I get out of the honey. We need to have this kind of a vista, this kind of a, how do you say, the vision. I want to go there. So it should be easy to go there, provided I look into that and say, well, no, not for that. I'm always amazed about, especially now, some of these Western practitioners, highly praise, almost realized beings for what they go and drop their practice. It's amazing. And I can't follow that, but it's strong. At times it's immensely strong, Okay, if you're not that kind of a person, you're most probably the one who is hard on yourself, you see. So you are now so wonderfully concentrated, you are here, you are stabilized, you have just again looked into that. We only need to practice breathing in and breathing out once. Okay, I do that, no problem, And then you find yourself deviating, whatever it is. And you say, no, I'm not doing that. Not me. No. I have the strength, and you pull yourself back. Here you are. And so you're the kind of fighter with yourself. You are kind of following your strictness and your straightness, and you are better than the Buddha. That's the other Westerner, especially male Northern German people, like me. No, I'm not doing that. Not with me. You don't get me. Here I am. And you get hard. You're fighting. And you want to succeed. You want to be the best. You know that kind of a guy or that kind of a girl, not giving in to anything. So that practice now is different. Again, you feel that kind of a hardness, that tension. And you also let go. But this letting go is more a kind of being good to yourself. The traditional term for it is to have self-compassion. Be compassionate with yourself, not being now, at this time, already so good that the Buddha comes along and praises you. It's like you're the first time in the water and swim, and you do accept, I begin. For some people, extremely difficult. No, I'm already more than that. I have done, And so you start being hard on yourself that you have not reached yet. You constantly look left and right and compare. and judge yourself and look at the others, how enlightened they are already and you are not. Okay, you know that kind of a thing. So I kind of give you this, I wouldn't say a warning, it's just a kind of a nice reminder. These are the two deviations. I know myself too. You know, it's not that you are strict this one or strict that one. But there is a tendency that you are more of the glowy one and they are more of the refusing one, you know, but still it's an obstacle. And however nice it always looks, easy looks, a practice, you know, coming back to the here now and now, it's not. It's really not. It is a kind of a training yourself. Be honest to yourself. Be self-compassionate to yourself. But again and again and again, remember, you want to go into that direction. If you don't remember that, you easily give up. So that is why I today began with that is so important situation for the Buddha. It's not told very often. It is a kind of dramatically turn of the Buddha when he said, it is possible. I don't know how, you know, but it is possible. I've seen someone who is not affected, and he is not affected because of some kind of a different mind than I have. Have that in mind. Whatever is happening, don't lose the direction. And then even these obstacles will finally not be obstacles. You know, it's true for all human beings. It was even true to a certain extent for the Buddha. It took him several years to finally come to that. So I leave you today, and finally now, with a sentence by Rilke. Rilke, you might have heard the name. It's a very famous German poet, and especially now in spiritual alternative circles, he's kind of a famous. And he has kind of phrased what I have told you or showed you. And it's a very wonderful sentence saying, when the longing, you know, longing, when that kind of a desire to reach, this kind of longing, when the longing is greater than the fear, courage is created. That is what I'm today talking about. We begin with that longing. Yes, I want to go that path. When we lived, Helga and myself lived in Plum Village at least once a year. I would call everybody in, and instead of a Dharma talk, we are handed paper and pen, and then he said, today I have a question to you. We know already, but some didn't know. And so I have a question. and you please answer the question. So that is, you have a pen and paper, and you write this answer and give it to me. And his question was a little bit in according to what I just talked you by Rilke. He asked us, what is your deepest desire? The same thing. Eh? It is not something like to want to be rich or famous or whatsoever. He was expecting us that this deepest desire is something along compassion and wisdom. And some of us were so smart and we know already what you wanted to hear, so we wrote it down. My deepest desire is to be compassionate and be wise, you know, and he would tear it and put it aside, you know. It's not honest. It's not easy. And so I leave you with that kind of a task, so to say. Give yourself the quietness, the time, the space, and kind of feel into that question. What is my deepest desire? And it's to me almost the same like with Thai, you know. I somehow expect you that it is not being famous and beautiful and I don't know what, you know. But, you know, it could be that this is still your deepest desire, you know. And in Thai, he was sometimes really kind of hard. You say, if you come here and you're only here to become the abbot of the monastery, you better leave. That is not a desire I support. If that is your deepest desire, you're not on the path. Some of us are. And I don't think it's definitely, absolutely wrong not to become famous or loved or whatsoever. And I think for us human beings, it's important to be accepted, to be seen, to whatsoever. But it is not our deepest desire. It is something we need. And it's good to go into that direction, but it's not our deepest desire. Our deepest desire is to walk on the path, as it says, as Thais often use it, on the path to liberation. And this path towards liberation, the path out of the biological conditioned mind into a mind which is open, clear, wise, is easy. And that's what the practice is for. It is driven, so to say, by our desire, our longing. And because we have that longing, we just go for the obstacle. There is no fear. We just face it. And then we know what to do. And we do. So, trust yourself. Don't trust anybody else. The Buddha, at the end of his life, he said, trust the Dharma. Don't trust me, don't trust anybody in the world. Trust the Dharma. And the Dharma is a practice. And the Dharma is a path out of the conditioned mind into the mind, as we would say, the nirvanic mind, the mind which is freed from selfishness and freed from obstacles. Okay? Good. So here we go. Yes? Good. So enjoy your journey, and maybe we meet each other and in the nirvana one day, you know. So we all meet now on the road, you know. You might still remember the time when we were allowed to do the hitchhiking. You know, remember that? You know, you were staying at the roadside and it had a sign. You know, you have that. Remember that? You know, and I've seen once a picture of someone who had this sign, Nirvana, hitchhiking. So let's queue up. Okay, and the truck will come, no problem, and we'll go ahead. Okay.